Crispy skin that shatters like glass, beautifully moist, tender meat. Is there anything better than a porchetta? I'm not sure there is, and when it's done right, it's one of my favorite things in the world. Today, I'm gonna show you how I make my traditional porchetta. Is it traditional? Let's find out. So first thing I like to do before we get stuck in with the pork is to make our little marinade that goes in the center. So we've got some rosemary, some garlic, some lemon zest, and this is where I start questioning whether it's authentic or not, because I'm pretty sure the authentic one doesn't have lemon, but I do think it adds something. Some chili flakes, some parsley, obviously lots of salt, and fennel pollen. Now I know fennel pollen's not super available. Don't fret, if you can't find fennel pollen, then you can just use some crushed up toasted fennel seeds instead. So we're really simply gonna shred the leaves of this rosemary and roughly chop it. We're gonna grate our garlic. We're gonna zest our lemon. We're gonna run a knife roughly through our parsley. It really doesn't need to be super particular. Everything in the bowl, we mix it really well, and we'll leave it in the fridge until we're ready to put it all over our pork and roll it up. That smells so good. Let's talk about pork. So this is a pork belly, bone out, with the loin still attached. This isn't something that you will find on the shelf in the butcher shop or the supermarket or anywhere. So this is something you're gonna have to special order from the butcher. Go into your butcher. Most high street butchers will get in whole pigs and they'll break them down themselves. So give them like a week's notice if you can. Ask for a pork belly, loin still attached. This isn't a whole one. This is about 2/3. If you have run out of time, you haven't thought ahead and you need to get this today, then just get a pork belly bone out. It's just not traditional, but it's done a lot. We're gonna run you through how to deal with this. So the first thing you wanna do, what I like to do, is just to roll it up and find where the skin is gonna meet. So you can see here where that skin overlaps a little bit, which is perfect because we actually have a line of nipples here that we kind of want to take off for no other reason other than people like basic Mitch get grossed out by them. So we're gonna take that little strip off there. We're actually gonna take this loin off, and because I like to open it up and get some flavor in the middle. So you don't need to be super particular about this because it is just gonna get rolled up again. I'll turn this around this way. Don't worry, I will wash my big chopping board. Don't have a red one that's big enough. And just follow that seam along the bottom. Okay, we're gonna leave this aside for a second. We'll get the rest of this ready. Now, there's a big bit of fat here. The whole thing is fat, which is what you want in porchetta. This is quite a tricky thing to cook because you've got a loin, which is quite lean and can overcook quickly, and you've got a belly, which is full of intramuscular fat. It takes a long time to break down. So I think keeping that fat in there is really important because it keeps the loin moist. You will find sometimes some people pull it out, they'll just trim some of this off, especially at this end, but I think just leave it in, especially if you're doing this for home. If it comes out and it's still got a little bit too much fat in there, you just don't have to eat it. So we're gonna flip this guy over. I'm gonna mark a line, a nice straight line along here next to the nipples. And we're just gonna run a blade underneath that skin along that line just to get those nipples off. Okay, so now I think we're good. I'm gonna just get that loin back in there, put it back where it came from. What we want is skin all the way around. So you see that there? It's perfect, it's just closing up. If anything, I took a little bit too much off there, but that's what you're looking for, skin all the way around. Okay, what I am gonna do though is take a little bit of this off, not to take the fat off, but just so it's a bit thinner, so the seam, I guess, joins a bit nicer. And it's probably a bit of a chefy thing to do, but you've invested in a pretty expensive piece of meat, take the time to make it look good. So all that's done is thin out that end bit, just means it's gonna seam up a bit nicer. In here, we're just gonna score some of this flesh, and all that's gonna do is give us more space to get all those delicious aromats that we just made. Even this, you can kind of cut this back a bit, then we'll put some aromats under there, put that flat back over. So you see here how this line kind of comes out a bit. Again, I'm probably being a little bit chefy, but just take that corner off so it's nice and square. Okay, so we need to score the skin. Be conscious of the way that you're gonna tie it. We're gonna tie it this way, so you don't wanna run your scores this way. So you can either score it this way, so it's going against where your line's going, your butcher's twine's going, or you can do it on a diagonal. Either way kind of works. You can either use a really, really sharp knife, or you can just get a razor blade like this. Either way, it needs to be sharp. So I'm just gonna cut at quite a good diagonal, about 2 centimeters apart. And it doesn't need to be, perfect. Just run the blade across the skin and just make sure it's kind of piercing it like that much, that deep, all the way along. It's also worth mentioning, which I meant to mention at the start of the video, this is actually the day before we're cooking it. It's really important, if you can, to do it a day ahead, because we're going to leave it uncovered in the fridge so that the skin dries out and goes nice and crispy. Let's put this aside for a second. You get our loin back, and we're just going to butterfly this and open it up so that we can get some of those delicious flavors in there. So straight down the middle, leaving about 1 centimeter at the bottom just to keep it together, and then going sideways. You're just trying to open it up. All right, let's get this marinade into here. Don't use all of it, obviously, because we need it for our belly. And then rub it all in. Fold this back in on itself, and we'll get the belly back in. And just like before, sprinkle some over. Make sure you rub it in all those grooves. All right, we'll bring our loin back, roll it from this way. So I'm gonna bring that loin back here, because we want this end to be tucked into the skin at the other end. Looking good. Okay, so now we need to tie this up. So we've got some butcher's string here, and I just kind of keep this underneath me, makes it easier. We're gonna start from the center and then work our way to the outside. When I tie beef, I often will keep the string together, if that makes sense. Like I will not cut it in between, but we're just gonna cut it in between because it's really important that we get this nice and tight. Oh, so tight, I don't know my own strength. And then we'll just tie that off again, cut the end off. So we go center, one side, other side, other side, other side. Go over, you go under your long one, loop it over and pull it back through. And that way you should have like a slip knot that you can get some tension on, and then you double knot it after that. And there it is. Now you want to get that as tight as you can. It's a bit of an art, and I'm certainly no butcher, but as long as you get it as tight as you can, it will start to expand while it cooks, so it should be okay. It's time to dry it out. So what we got is the tray and the rack that we're going to cook it on. So you need to have a tray, and you really want it on a rack above the tray, which means you can get airflow underneath it. So you're going to put it on the rack with the seam side down, and then we're going to go put it in the fridge. So in the fridge it goes uncovered, and you want this in there for at least 24 hours, if not 36, 48 hours. It'll be perfectly fine. And bonus points if you've got a fan in the fridge like I have here, that will just help the skin to dry out faster. Well, it's the next day, and it's come out of the fridge about 20 minutes ago, and I have my oven preheating. That's preheating to 225 Celsius, 445 Fahrenheit for all my US friends out there. And it's looking good. It's nice and dry. You can kind of, it's definitely not wet or moist at all to the touch, and I'm pretty happy with it. We're not gonna salt the outside. So the reason we don't do that is because if we put salt on it, it's gonna draw moisture out. Moisture is the enemy right now. We can season it after, and obviously all the meat is already seasoned anyway. So let's get this in the oven. It only just fits in my oven. So we're gonna be in there for, I reckon, about 45 minutes at that temperature, the 225. So we're gonna turn that down to 140, which is 285 Fahrenheit, and we'll continue cooking for like 3 hours, like I say. So while that's cooking, I wanted to thank today's sponsor, Maiden. These Maiden products have become a bit of a staple in my household by now, and I'm sure you've seen me using their stainless clad pots and pans in several of my videos. Not to mention the sheet pan and rack that the pork is currently cooking on. Maiden partners with the best raw material providers and family-owned manufacturers in the US, France, the UK, and Italy to produce some of the greatest kitchen products that I've honestly ever used. So this stainless clad collection are crafted in Italy, and they use premium 5-ply stainless steel material, and those 5 layers are what allows for even heating and the ease of heat control. All of their cookware can go from the stovetop to an 800-degree oven easily, which is obviously far beyond what we're ever going to use them for in the home kitchen. Check out the stainless clad collection and Maiden's other incredible cookware by using the link in my description and save on your order. And thank you again to Maiden for sponsoring another one of my videos. Now let's go check on that pork. Let's have a look. That's 45 minutes. That's pretty good, but I'm going to flip it around and give it 10 more minutes. So that's 45. Just gonna get it a little bit crispier. Look at that. 10 more minutes and we should be good to turn that oven down and let it cook all the way through. So I'm just turning this oven down to 140 and we'll have a look. So Pretty happy with how this is turning out. Literally like glass. This is exactly what we want. So the oven's turned down to 140. We're just gonna give that a couple of minutes just to actually come down in temperature, and then we'll get this back in. One of the things you can struggle with domestic ovens, if you don't have like a good fan force oven, is having good even crisp all the way around. So don't stress. If you do have a spot that's not like super crispy, there's not too much you can do about it unless you rotate it a lot. So just keep that in mind. Don't be too hard on yourself if there's a spot that's a little bit like not crisp, but this one's actually pretty good. Pretty happy with that. All right, that oven's down in temperature. Let's get this back in and continue the cook. All right, so I'd set a timer for a piece of pork that size. I'll honestly start checking about an hour and a half, 2 hours. We're looking for an internal temperature of 75 degrees Celsius, which is 170 degrees Fahrenheit. Once we're in that temperature, then we can rest it and cut it. But depending on how big the piece of meat is, whether you've done it with a loin or not, there's lots of different variants as to how long that will take. So start checking at about an hour and a half, but I predict this is gonna take about 3 hours. So what time is it now? It's 11 o'clock now, just before 11. So we'll see what time it actually comes out. So the pork's been in the oven for an hour and 40 minutes now, and it's just cracked 50 degrees in the center. So we're tracking well. But we're gonna start our gremolata, and then we're gonna make our polenta. So the polenta will take about an hour to cook, and it will hot hold for a while, but not forever. So we'll make our gremolata first, and then we'll make our polenta. Gremolata is an Italian condiment, one of my favorites for a couple of reasons, especially with a dish like this. It's really, really simple. It's fat leaf parsley, lemon zest, and garlic. No olive oil, a little bit of salt, sorry, as well. There's 4 ingredients. The citrus and the earthiness of the parsley just cuts through all that fat really well. So I'm gonna pick all this parsley. So we're gonna, what we chefs call chiffonade, basically finely slice. And when you're cutting herbs, especially lots of them, you kind of try and roll it up like a cigar, and then you run your blade across your front of your knuckles. The finer you can get it, kind of the better. But what you don't want to do is kind of puree it, like run your blade over it a whole bunch of times. Otherwise, I feel like it kind of can just starts to turn quicker. So nice sharp blade, nice and fine, all the way through. Ideally, you're only cutting it once. You're not cutting it a bunch of times. Once you get your parsley done, into a bowl. If you've got any big bits like I've got, just pull them out. But that's what you're looking for. So then I'm just gonna peel 3 cloves of garlic. Well, I said 3 cloves, but I ended up with 4. Cooking's about improvisation. If it doesn't feel right, it's probably not. Don't grate your fingers either. So the reason I do the garlic first is because your grate is now full of garlic, so the lemon zest will help push that through. So when you're zesting lemons, don't go too hard. You just want that real outside skin. That's what all the oils are in. So we are gonna add the juice of like just half of one of these lemons. Don't want heaps in there, just enough, more so to kind of keep the parsley nice and green and vibrant. Big pinch of flaky salt, mix it really well. The reason you mix it well is because all that garlic, you want it really well or evenly distributed across all that parsley. Cool, that can go in the fridge until we're ready to use it. So, polenta is really hard and really easy to make at the same time. Anyway, chicken stock, that's 1 litre. We actually need 1.2 litres of liquid, so I'm just gonna cheat and put a little bit of water in there. No big deal. We're gonna bring that to a simmer. Really important, I can't emphasize this enough. Make sure you're stirring while the polenta goes in. That way, make sure it doesn't boil over. Don't control your heat, Andrew, cooking. It's all about time and temperature. So the reason why you need to stir it is to make sure that all the individual grains kind of separate quickly. Now you've kind of got this smooth looking polenta, you are really in the safe zone. It's just that real initial parts where I think people get unstuck with polenta. And just watch as well, because like that consistency is really good, but what's gonna happen is that polenta is gonna keep losing moisture, so we are gonna need to add a little bit more water to that at some point. We're actually gonna do it right now. And I'm actually gonna up the amount of stock on my recipe so you don't run into this problem. Whoa, that was noisy. All right, at this point, pretty happy. We've been stirring that for about 10 minutes. Just gonna scrape down the edges really well, put a lid on it, and just let it really slowly cook. We're gonna mix it or stir it every 10 minutes. All right, we're pretty much bang on 3 hours at the 140 temperature. So it's pushing, 3 hours 45, almost 4 hours in total. And I reckon we're pretty close. Let's pull it out and we'll get one final temperature. I tell you what, it smells pretty good. Let's see what this is. We're gonna go dead center. Bang on, it's about 74 degrees right now, which is what we're after. So we're just gonna let this rest for a bit. I am gonna show you a little trick to get this to puff up even more. And then we'll finish our polenta, let this rest, and we'll carve apple slice. All right, so the polenta's been going for about 40 minutes now. It's on really low, which is what we're after. So just gonna, one last stir. I have adjusted the recipe that will be below and on the website for the amount of liquid, because it took quite a bit more. So I think I said 1.2 liters, and I just used water for the last 200 because I didn't have any more chicken stock, to be perfectly honest. But I'm gonna up that to 1.5, and that's worked out really well. One last stir. Get some butter in there, and you can put as much butter as you want in here. it does just taste delicious. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just how naughty you feel like you're being. Give that a quick stir, and then we'll let the rest of that melt. And then back to our pork. So the crackle, I'm happy with. It's really good. However, it can always be better. So the issue you have, like I talked about at the start, is that the commercial ovens, they don't have as much airflow. So even though it was really well crackled, but then we cooked it for 3 hours, it does tend to soften up. So if you get yourself one of these little blow torches, you gotta be really careful. You do not want to burn this, but it should just puff up. So keep it quite far away, and as soon as you start seeing it change color, pull back from it. So some of the parts that are already pretty crispy, they will burn a lot quicker. But some of these parts, especially like this side's actually pretty good, but on the side closest to me, there's some parts that are a bit more, not quite as crispy. So this side's pretty good because it was the side that the fan was on. If we go back to this side, so you can see here, that's super crackly. Whereas down here, it's a little bit softer. So this stuff should puff up really well. Gotta do the obligatory. Pretty happy. That's what you're after. That sound. Almost like it's gonna shatter. All right, let's have a look at this polenta. Looking good. Just gonna let this pork rest for another sort of 15 minutes, and then we'll get carving. The wait is finally over. It's time to eat this thing. So the other good thing about tying it like we did, where it's not all tied together, is you can just take off what you need for carving, because the more you keep on there, the better it's gonna hold together. Cut this piece off here. Also, use a serrated knife. That makes it way easier. Whoa, look at that. Juicy, the fat's nicely rendered, cooked perfectly through. I tell you what, I'm pretty happy with that. That's all I have to say. Let's plate this up because I want to eat it. Give your polenta one last little mix. And the best part about cooking a piece of meat this big is that the porchetta sandwiches that the team are going to have tomorrow are probably going to be about as epic as they get. On that goes a little bit of gremolata, a little bit of good quality EVO because Italy, and that is about as good as lunch gets. I guess we should taste. So we're going for the loin first, which is the part that's at most risk of drying out, and this is the end piece. Not dry at all. Gremolata, bit of polenta. Yum. You know, super well seasoned. You get a fennel, you get a little kick of chili, not much. Seasoned really nicely, delicious. All right, my favorite part. When the crackle just breaks like that, you know you're in for a good time. It's just silly. It's so good. And the belly, yeah, stunning. It's no surprise why the Italians have been cooking this dish for so long. It's a big piece of meat, takes a lot of work to get it right, but it's absolutely worth doing it. A piece like this will comfortably feed 12, 14 people, or if you like us, maybe 5. But we'll eat this for the next couple of days. We'll eat this hot now, or I'll chill it down overnight tonight, and then we'll just take slices of it and make porchetta sandwiches. Anyway, legends, thanks so much for watching. Like this video if you took anything from it, subscribe if you're not, and I'm getting out of here because I want to eat this in peace. Oh, almost forgot. If you love feeding a group of people, this is an excellent dish to do. Check out the video somewhere here, and that will show you how I love to cook for my friends and family. Peace.